now we have BCG, Stefan Gross-Selbeck, talking about what you do to the economy, how you're helping old companies to bring new concepts into the market. Thank you so much for being here, Stefan.
Is there a clicker? Oh, there it is. So thanks, Marco. It's great to be back. It's actually amazing how NOAH has evolved under your leadership. So it's great to be back, and thanks for having me. So what I want to talk about today primarily is I want to share the results of a study which we have been conducting, where we analyzed and surveyed hundreds of companies. We surveyed about 90 startup companies, conducted interviews with about 30 investment industry executives to better understand the state of the cooperations, partnerships happening between startups on one hand and large traditional companies on the other hand. We have a full study you can get at our booth, so please come and visit our booth. I'll share a couple of the highlights today. What you will see is there's some good news and there's some bad news, but in particular, there's concrete things one can do to significantly increase the likelihood of success of these kinds of partnerships. So that's what I want to talk about. The reason I'm so passionate about the topic is because the company I represent actually was built on the premise that if you combine the strengths of these traditional big companies, which are big because they have been successful for a long time and because they sit on amazing assets, which is access to markets, maybe brands, technology, data. If you combine these assets with the speed and the agility of startups, they can actually create great things. And that's what we have been doing. That's BCG Digital Ventures. We're a global investment and incubation company. We incubate, we build new businesses, startup companies in partnership with corporates end to end. That means we really start with developing the concepts and ideas, but we don't stop there, but we actually build the products, the platforms, we stand up the company, we hire the team, we invest in those businesses alongside with our partners, and ultimately hand them over to our corporate partners. We've been doing this for the past 5 years. We've built around 90 businesses globally over the past 5 years. We have built a team of about 1,000 professionals globally, all of them with first-hand startup or business build experience, a third of them software engineers, another third product managers, designers, a third other functions. In terms of portfolio, we can talk about the entire portfolio here. A couple of examples of companies which we have built and launched in this geography. So Up42 is a business which we incubated together with Airbus. It's a developer platform which enables developers to leverage geospatial data to build new products and services. Coop will be familiar to many who are from Berlin, an e-scooter sharing business quite present here in Berlin and in other cities. Hey Car is a used car marketplace which we incubated together with Volkswagen, and then LabTwin is an interesting medtech business which we built together with Sartorius. It's a tool which has the potential to revolutionize the way research and development is done in the pharmaceutical industry, leveraging voice processing technology. So just a couple of examples from our portfolio. Please do check them out. Now, really what our mission is at BCG Digital Ventures is really to fight this guy. Anyone who has ever tried to do non-incremental innovation in a large organization knows it is hard for all the well-known reasons. Fear of cannibalization, turf wars, bureaucracy. For me, it's important to understand and to make clear it's not because these big organizations are stupid. It's because executing a business and running a large organization requires specific skills and processes and capabilities which are just fundamentally different from the kinds of skills and processes and people you need to create something from scratch. It's two very different things, and it's very difficult to do one in the context of the other. That's the fundamental dilemma, that's the challenge, and that is a real problem. It's important for all of us that big companies are able to innovate. If you look at the overall sort of global landscape, I think one of the particular strengths which European companies have had for a long period of time is that they're able to reinvent themselves. We have many companies across Europe, in Germany, but also across Europe, that have been around for many decades, some for centuries, and they have proven in the past they can reinvent themselves from within. And it's critically important for all of us, for our competitiveness, that these companies just do this again in the area of the digital transformation which we're all seeing. So driving innovation must be a key priority. And the good news, if you will, is that people understand that, the executives in these companies, they know that. And one of the things they have been doing increasingly over the years is develop those partnerships with startup companies, because these kinds of partnerships can help them in driving innovation. And there's this data from our study. The headline is everybody's doing it. So 29 out of 30 DAX companies in Germany have some sort of partnership with startups. Over half of the Mittelstands companies have a partnership, whether that's an accelerator, corporate venture capital unit, an incubator, different shapes and forms, but it's become quite common to do these kinds of partnerships. The bad news is it's actually not going too well. Over half of the startups are actually unhappy with the outcome of these partnerships and cooperations, and almost half of the corporates are unhappy. Why is that? Well, because many of these partnerships don't live up to expectations. They miss their objectives. Some of the objectives are on this chart. So obviously, startups are interested in growth, in driving business, in driving revenues for their business. They're also particularly interested in building their reputation, and a partnership with a big brand can obviously help with that. Corporates typically expect something very different. They want to try something new. They may want to launch a pilot. They also want to drive new business. And they also, half of them, I find that quite interesting, they expect a cultural shift from these kinds of partnership. Now think about this. This may be a big company with tens of thousands of employees expecting a cultural shift from a partnership with a startup which maybe has 20 people. Now you wonder, is that realistic? And you wonder, is it really surprising that some of these expectations are not fulfilled? So there's issues, and again, I think it's important to find ways to fix these, because innovation is important, and I am deeply convinced that startups can play a key role in driving innovation in large organizations. So what I want to do briefly is share 3 learnings, lessons, which come from our study, but which also come from 5 years of us doing just that and collecting a lot of experience. And I only have a little time left, so I'll be quick. But just quickly, 3 very simple things one can do to improve the likelihood of success. It starts by being incredibly clear about the actual objectives you have. Be clear about them yourselves, but also communicate them very clearly to your partner on both sides to make sure there are no surprises. And it's not enough to just say, I want to use your data, I want to leverage your brand. It has to be specific in terms of how you actually get access to the assets which you need, to the support you need in order to reach the objectives of what you're trying to do. Secondly, what we see a lot happening is that corporations tend to manage their relationships, their investments in startups, like they manage corporate projects, which doesn't really work because the nature of these partnerships is typically different. They're higher risk, they're more risky, there's more agility required. So the advice is to really take on what we call a more investor's mindset on the corporate side. So think about, of a portfolio of initiatives, investments you make. Manage those, in milestones. Just fund them if they're successful. Be willing to pull the plug if they don't work. Something not very common inside corporations, as some of you may know. And lastly, what we see in most of the successful partnerships which we do see is they have a clear link between what the startup is trying to do and the actual core of what the corporation's business is. So it's not somewhere on the side, it's really at the heart of their business. Creating these links may be particularly challenging, but the rewards are great because it increases the likelihood of success. So, finishing on a hopefully positive note, people have understood the need for innovation. They see startups as a source of innovations. There's great things one can do to improve the likelihood of success. There's much more data on this in our study, so please check it out. There's a team there answering your questions, and thank you for your listening this morning. Thank you.